Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today, I have an awesome second half to share with you. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click that like button, and please leave a comment. It really does help, and guys, it definitely matters. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with tonight's second half, shall we? Alright guys, tonight's second half. What happens when a grizzly bear meets up with a dogman or a Bigfoot? And we're going to head over to Sweden for a terrifying dogman encounter. Let's get into it. Today's first encounter brings us to Wyoming. My boyfriend at the time, my now husband, let's call him H, was an avid outdoorsman, and he also served in the military. I was an ecology major and wanted to spend more time outdoors. So he decided to take me on my first backpacking experience, just the two of us. For those who aren't familiar, the Grand Tetons are well known for their wildlife, especially grizzly bears. My only experience with bears up to this point was watching a little black bear cross the road from the safety of my car. Seeing grizzly country signs around every corner was not doing much to calm my nerves. Alright, our first incident. My boyfriend looked like Indiana Jones, machete hanging from his belt, large knives attached to each side of his pack, bear spray strapped to his waist. You get the picture. The beginning of our 25-mile journey was all uphill. When in bear country, you're supposed to make noise as not to startle the wildlife by accidentally sneaking upon it. As you can imagine, going up a steep hill while carrying a 40-pound pack makes it difficult to make conversation. We were an hour in and almost at the top of an ascent. I noticed the woods had gone completely silent, save for the rushing stream that was to our left on the trail. Silent woods are never a good sign. This usually indicates predators nearby. At this point, I was in front of my boyfriend, and we were just about to crest the hill. For the past 20 minutes, we hadn't said a word to each other, having been too tired to speak. We noticed the silence at the same time and gave each other a knowing glance. I came over the top of the hill and immediately froze. Sitting not 10 feet in front of me in the middle of the trail was a grizzly bear. My boyfriend was not aware yet, as he was behind me, so I did the first thing I could think of. While still in my frozen stance, I managed to take my arm and started flinging it wildly behind me to try to get his attention. I was too terrified to speak. The bear went from sitting to all fours, not looking away from us once. H quickly swung me around so that I was behind him, and just started yelling. Being in the military, he knows how to yell. The grizzly wasn't quite fazed, as it started to walk slowly towards us. At this point, I was on the verge of passing out from terror. The bear was about 5 feet in front of us when we heard this loud crack coming from the woods to our right. The bear heard it as well, and he bolted towards the stream. The second crack boomed again, this time much closer than before. H said it's probably just some falling branches, but we both knew that wasn't the case. At this point, we were walking quickly up the trail in an attempt to create some distance from the grizzly and those strange noises. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand straight up, and at the same moment, H stopped moving in front of me. He turned around and looked at me, and I turned to look behind me. To this day, we are not sure what we saw. Back where we were just standing was a large black-brown mass. It looked to be 3 times bigger than the already large grizzly we had just seen a few moments before. Its back was facing us, and then it stood on its back legs. It looked similar to a bear, but something about its shape was all off. At this point, it was probably stupid to run away, but that's exactly what we did. We were aware of heavy footsteps behind us, but neither of us looked back. The footsteps eventually faded. At this point, I was a mess. H was doing his best to console me. "Honey, this is extremely unusual. The bears usually stay away from humans. We're going to be okay. I'm sure it won't happen again." That was enough to convince me to continue on the backpack trip. About an hour later, though, we reached a clearing where we decided to take a rest and have a snack. About a minute after we had sat down, I noticed the bushes moving in a line towards the clearing, right towards us. Out of the brush comes an adolescent grizzly who looks just as spooked as we were, but he was coming straight for us. H, being a crazy nut that he is, decided to charge back at the bear while screaming, bear spray in hand. That did the trick, and the bear ran off. All I could think was just my luck, but that wasn't even close to what happened the second night. The second night. Before we began our backpacking, we had to let the ranger station know which trail and route we planned on to take. With this information, they usually sent a ranger on horseback at some point during the backpack to check on you and make sure everything was okay. There were not many approved trails left for us to choose from, and it was just our luck that they were the most difficult. Apparently, over the 3 days, we were the only ones on those trails. We didn't see a single other hiker once we were on that route. Anyhow, I guess we missed the ranger who came to check on us. We had been following hoof prints the entire second day, and we didn't see any the day before. I had some foot problems, so we spent a valuable daylight trying to adjust my bootlaces socks to compensate for the pain. When we started on the trail again, we made it about an hour or 2 of daylight left, and in the woods it gets dark fast. I was exhausted. It was just now dark out, and H was the only one with a working headlamp, as mine wouldn't turn on for some reason. We needed to find somewhere to set up camp, as we still needed to eat. It was freezing, and the wind was blowing. It was creating a howling sound as it rushed through the trees, which made it difficult to hear H or discern any other sounds coming from the woods. After another hour of hiking through the dark, we found a clearing. Well, it was more like a bowl. It looked to be about 200 meters in diameter, with the sides being 10 meters down from the trail to the bottom of the clearing. This place was strange, and we both felt it, though he didn't tell me how freaked out he was till after we had left. There was no moonlight, so all we had was the illumination from his headlamp, our small camp stove, and the flashlight I had fished from my pack. Half the trees were dead and fallen just in the bowl. The vegetation everywhere else was very dense. To help alleviate my anxiousness, he started playing Ninja Sex Party out on our portable speaker. This didn't help much, it just echoed off the trees, creating a dissonance of sound. He also thought it would ward off any predators nearby. This is when we knew our anxiousness wasn't paranoia. The silence was back. There hadn't been a single bird chirp since we arrived at the clearing. It also may have had to do with the obnoxious music, because the previous experience we decided to turn off the music and head into the tent. Also, it was freezing. As soon as we were situated in our sleeping bags, we heard deep cracks and thuds echoing from beyond the tree line. Falling trees? There had been a lot of wildfires and very little rain this season. Thud! We both froze. That sound was not an echo. It came from inside the clearing, definitely not a falling tree. Thud! It came from right side of our tent. We both stopped breathing. H's hand found mine, and we clung to each other paralyzed. Something dragged across the outside of our tent, making an indent as it went along. It was thin, almost like a finger. "What is it?" I whispered, shaking. "I don't know. Shouldn't be a person. We're the only ones on this mountainside." I was trying my hardest to stifle the sobs, trying to listen to whatever was outside. I could hear steps, but couldn't decipher what it was. The steps stopped, and then the whole side of the tent was slowly pushed inward. At this point, whatever was outside knew we were inside, so I flashed my flashlight at the side of the tent. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was the shape of a human face pressed into the tent wall. I could make out a nose and an open mouth. Each time they breathed, it made the tent around their mouth billow in and out. H said "fuck that" and pulled the Glock from his sleeping bag, cocked it, and the sound shattered the silence. The face pulled back, and we heard fast footsteps heading towards the edge of the clearing. We didn't leave the tent till the sun came out the next morning. The first thing we noticed was the smell of urine. We came out of the tent and looked around. Whoever it was had peed on our coals, and we had left in the fire, leaving a disgusting stench of evaporated pee. Large footprints surrounded our tent, circling around multiple times. Muddy handprints decorated the outside of our tent as well. Well, we think it was mud at least. The takeaway: wildlife is not the most dangerous thing in the backwoods. Today's second encounter is a Dogman encounter. 11 years ago, my husband and I were outside working on our driveway. It was about 9:30 at night, and it was dark out. I was raking at the end of our driveway. My husband was stacking wood. We both had our headlamps on so we could see what we were doing. So as I'm finishing up raking, I hear something really big running up our hill towards our driveway. I can hear each step it was taking. I thought maybe it was a bear because of how the footsteps sounded. You know, like there was some weight behind it. My husband heard it as well. He came running towards me and then past me into the road, chasing whatever it was. So I say to him, "What the hell are you doing?" He said, "I'm chasing it away from our property. I don't want it to come around our property again." Then I say, "Stop, you're crazy. Whatever it is bigger than you." So he continues to chase it up the hill, yelling and screaming at it to get out of here. He's yelling, "Go on, get!" At the top of our hill is a cul-de-sac with a streetlight. I'm scared as hell, so I'm staying back a little bit. But I'm curious what it might be as well. So I continue up the hill behind my husband. When my husband chased it up to the cul-de-sac, the creature stopped right in the light that was cast from the streetlight. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like I was flipping through the pages in my memory banks trying to compare it to anything I had seen before. It looked like a werewolf to me. It was taller than my husband, who's 6'3". It had ashen gray skin with tufts of shaggy hair here and there. It looked sickly, like it had mange or something. It had the body of a human, but its head looked like a dog. It had a long snout and pointed ears like a Doberman pinscher. It had a slight hunch on its back of its neck, just like a hyena has. Its upper arms were slightly shorter than the length of a human's. Its hips were much larger than ours. Kind of like a kangaroo, but not as big. But it was obvious from the hips and shorter arms that it could go walking on 2 feet like us and run on 4s like a dog or a bear could. So when it gets into the light of the streetlight, it stopped and turned to look at my husband, who's still yelling at it, "Go on, get!" And the creature was pissed. I really think that because I don't think it liked being in the light. But when it turned to look at him, it snarled and growled at him for a second or two, and then, with 2 long footsteps, it shot into the woods just above our house. My friend and neighbor asked me to come down to her house a couple of weeks ago because another one of our neighbors that lives above our house, just past the woods that werewolf thing disappeared into, was at her place, and she said we needed to talk. So I went down there and she introduced us, and come to find out he had seen this werewolf thing in his yard as well, bent down on one knee drinking water out of a puddle. My sighting was 11 years ago, and he had his sighting 3 years ago. I'd heard of one other sighting about 7 years ago just above our house, and another one in Quilcene, Washington, which is a town just north of ours. I live in Brinion, Washington, and my husband and I know the woods around here like the back of our hands. I've seen and heard a lot of strange things in these woods, but nothing even compares to seeing what I saw that night. Today's third and final terrifying encounter brings us to Stockholm. Okay, this has never happened before to me. It all started me reading horror stories on Reddit, mainly on the community No Sleep. Reading and reading made me want to read more, and even terrified me more. Little did I know this would actually happen to me in real life. I hardly believe in ghosts or unexplainable phenomena. I either think it's bullshit or it's some other kind of natural thing everyone has seen in their life before. But then I get stuck on this one story about a creature that can change shape between people and animals, opening its mouth like a robot that malfunctioned. But this creature scared the hell out of me, calling it a skinwalker, basically a human and an animal put together to make some sort of thing that doesn't make sense. Now, I'm really never alone. In fact, Stockholm is a packed place. There's hardly any woods. But as you move further away from the middle of the city, that's where the long sticks with the greens show up. And Sweden is well known for their massive forests. I'm really not even exaggerating. Anyway, after a couple of months pass by, this story is about to leave my head. Before this one day, while in the middle of nowhere, I hear a loud scream outside of my house, sounding like a person's lungs are filled with water, and then shouting the highest they can. This scared the crap out of me, especially after reading the skinwalker experiences other people have had. I'm with my 9-year-old brother home alone. It's 20 past midnight, and he's playing Fortnite with my cousin. Anyway, I tell him I'm going outside to check and see what's going on, and he's all good with it. I go outside and, stupidly enough, leave my phone in the house. I go outside and I see someone has tipped over our big garbage can. I go up to it and put it back in its original position. As I'm about ready to head back inside, I hear it. The heavy footsteps behind me. I turn around and see nothing, and from approximately 100 feet or 30 meters from my yard is where I see it. Its red, bloody eyes are staring through my soul. It's on its 4 arms or legs or whatever, and it's just staring at me. It was so dark out, so I couldn't tell what color the creature was. This was not an animal or a dream. I've never seen animals' eyes so bright in the dark, not even owls. As I approach my door, not leaving the creature with my eyes, I lock the door and tell my brother to shut down the game and hand me my phone. I take a sneak peek through the window and see that it's on our front yard, making the weirdest noises, while looking inside our trash as it had found something. And as soon as I'm about ready to call the police, I get straight up eye contact with it again. I honestly can't explain how terrified I was at this point. I quickly dialed an emergency service number and started talking to them. I was speechless and they kept telling me to speak up. I had already walked away from the window at this point. The police had never came. The creature had to have left because the last thing I saw of it was its footprints on our yard. I haven't gone outside of the house since today. I'm too scared of that creature, whatever it was. All right, guys, I hope you all enjoyed tonight's second half as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I want to thank you all for all of your support. It really does mean the world to me. I did my first live stream last night, and wow, that was really fun. So I'm going to sit down in the next couple of days and think about doing kind of a revamp of the channel. Still doing 2 videos a day, but figure out a day of the week that I want to do a live stream as well. Just because it was really like I was just talking to the few hundred people that were on the channel at that time or on that video at the time, and it was really fun. So yeah, I'm looking to really change and upgrade and do a lot more. So, and that's because you guys support me. So I appreciate it. With that, everyone stay healthy, stay safe, and may the Great Spirit watch over us all. May He guide us down that path that we call life.